It's Goodreads Choice Awards season. I'm so excited to be reading the horror category this year. Last year I read fantasy, but this year we decided to read horror. So in just a second, we're gonna go back in time and see my live reactions to the top 20. We'll whittle it down to the top 10. I read way more than I have ever been able to read before of the full top 20, so very happy about that. Exciting things in store. Horror is one of my favorite genres to read, and I feel like it's always changing, so I love reading the Goodreads Choice Awards so I can find out what new niches are popping up in horror recently. And without further ado, let's head back in time and find out the top 20. At that point, I did not know what category I was gonna be reading, but we decided on horror, so you're in the right place, don't worry. Let's go read some scary things. Hello, it is November 14th, which means that the Goodreads Choice Awards nominations are live, and I'm so excited. So we're gonna look at them together. I have not looked at them yet, so we're gonna get live reactions. I'm gonna give you some predictions. Let's take a look at horror. My predictions for horror are episode 13, A House with Good Bones, Silver Nitrate, Vampires of El Norte, Rouge, How to Sell a Haunted House, and The September House. I feel like I haven't been reading a ton of horror this year, so I'm actually really excited to see what's gonna be in this category. Okay, Holly by Stephen King. I don't know why I didn't say Stephen King, but yep, that makes sense. Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison also makes sense. Our Share of Night I've seen. Don't Fear the Reaper. Becoming the Boogeyman, I have no idea what that is. I also have never seen, oh, Mr. Magic. Kirsten White's the one who wrote Hyde, right? I'm curious. I think everyone hated Hyde, but I'm interested to see if the other one would be better. Her Little Flowers, I have no idea what that is. I'm really happy to see Tananarive Due on here. Rouge by Mona Wad, September House, A House with Good Bones, Lone Woman by Victor Lavelle, Vampires of El Norte, Silver Nitrate. Okay, cool. Oh, I am so shocked to see Monstrilio on here. I didn't realize that that was so popular. I also thought that Dead 11 was a thriller, but okay. Really, really interesting. I think all of my predictions were on here except for episode 13. Exciting. I think we might read the horror category this year. I don't really want to read the Stephen King because I think it's going to be very confusing. It's the third in a series, so, but I would be interested in reading Dead 11. I would try another Rachel Harrison. I do want to read the Victor Lavelle. I would read both the Stephen Graham Jones. Sisters of the Lost Nation I've been wanting to read. I want to read Tananarive Due. I've really wanted to read Monstrilio, and I would read Our Share of Night. That was a wild ride. I think I'm going to crunch some numbers. I'll put up a poll and see what you guys want to see me read. I will see you when I have decided. I have decided that we are going to be reading the horror nominees for the Goodreads Choice Awards. I am beyond excited to be reading the horror category, and for those of you who really wanted me to read fantasy or sci-fi, I know fantasy got a lot of votes. I know sci-fi had a lot of people in my comments, in my DMs begging me to read sci-fi, so for those of you who really want me to read those types of categories, I am going to be doing some sort of content with the Hugo and Nebula Award nominees / winners, so stay tuned for that content. I'm not making any promises on when, but it is coming. But for this video, we're reading horror, and I'm super excited. So I have gone on Pango. I have ordered a bunch of things. I have acquired Natural Beauty. I have a Notion board just for this video so that I can keep track of everything that I need to read and where I can find it and what I'm reading physically versus audio. So because we have a Notion board and I have populated it with some statistics, we can do some finagling. So we have a bit of time here until the top 20 gets narrowed down to the top 10. So basically what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to pick a couple things that I'm super interested in, and then I'm also going to pick a couple things that I think are definitely going to make it through into that top 10 so that we can be efficient with our time, because this is a lot of things to read and not a lot of time. So I've gone through the whole list and sorted them by rating and by number of readers. So this list here is things that are either top 10 for rating or things that are top 10 for number of readers. And this is the list that I'm going to try to pull from. So out of this top 16, I have read 6. I'm actively interested in 6, and the other ones we're just gonna read anyways. The other wrinkle in these plans is that some of these are sequels, which makes things difficult. I think for the most part, I'm going to avoid the sequels until the top 10 comes out, and then we'll deal with them if they're there, because my goal is to read the top 10. Except for Don't Fear the Reaper, because I got super excited when this list came out. I have not been reading My Heart is a Chainsaw. For what reason? I don't know. But I got too excited about it, and I just devoured My Heart is a Chainsaw in less than 48 hours. I loved that book so much. It is 5 stars. I cannot wait to read Don't Fear the Reaper. Super, super excited. So that is the only sequel that I'm reading at this point in time. So I'm actually gonna start with Don't Fear the Reaper, but before we do that, I wanna tell you what I thought of My Heart is a Chainsaw since I just finished reading it this morning. So in this book, we're following Jade. She's 17 and she's obsessed with slashers. And when a final girl type character moves into her town that she lives in, she believes that a slasher cycle is about to start. I love this book so much. It's one of my favorite horror books I think I've ever read, which is so strange because part of the reason why I've put off reading this is I'd heard it was pretty slow to start with. I'd heard the main character was insufferable, and those things are both true, but I couldn't put it down. For a book where not much happens until the end, I seriously could not put it down. It's a slasher, but the slasher doesn't really get going until the very end of the book. I had such a good time reading this. I can't even explain it to you. It was gross. It was entertaining. It makes you think. I felt like it was the perfect slasher. I loved it. This book also has a lot to say about Jaws. Jaws is very present throughout the entire book, and that is one of my favorite movies, period, of all time. I love that movie so much. So I was really, really happy to see that play quite a large role in this book. Our main character Jade is definitely insufferable. Her whole vibe is slashers. Like, that's all she will talk to anyone about. She'll meet random people and she'll just start talking about slashers, and she won't do her history assignments, and instead she writes her history teacher papers about slashers and the history of slashers, and we get to see some of those history papers at the beginning of every chapter, and I loved all of it. She is so annoying and so insufferable, and she's so 17, and I loved it. It was gross, it was nasty, it got gory, it had a lot to say about a lot of things. I loved it so much, and I'm really excited to see where this is gonna go in sequel territory. So I have the audiobook of Don't Fear the Reaper. I read the audiobook of My Heart is a Chainsaw and loved it. Ordered a physical copy because I loved it that much that I need to have it on my shelves. So that is My Heart is a Chainsaw. Let's go start reading Don't Fear the Reaper. Okay, I'm halfway through Don't Fear the Reaper. The dog is hungry, so if he makes hungry dog noises, that's what's going on. I have notes. Let's talk about it. We're gonna hug Sully so he stays quiet. Our main character is back. We have a new slasher going on. We have sort of a serial killer slash possibly supernatural element going on. We're not entirely sure what it's gonna be yet, but that's what's happening. We're back in the same town. Jade, Jennifer, as she goes by now. I think it's so interesting, the evolution of this character, because in our first book, her full name is Jennifer, and in the first book, she keeps correcting everyone, telling everyone to call her Jade. And in this book, everyone's trying to call her Jade. They haven't seen her in like 4 years, so we're kind of getting to re-know Jennifer at the same time that everyone else in the town is, and we want to call her Jade, and they want to call her Jade, and she's now telling everyone, no, call me Jennifer. And so I'm really loving that whole dynamic. And Jade is a 17-year-old. She was so 17, and I loved that. And she's in her 20s now. She's maybe 21, 22, 23. She is very much a 21, 22-year-old. Obviously, that's closer to my age than 17 was, so I think I can look back on Jade as a 17-year-old and go, wow, that's so 17. I was also insufferable. I remember what it was like to be obsessed with something as a teenager. But now I think it's a little too close to home because she's very much like, oh, I'm too grown up for that. I don't care about slashers anymore. Like, that's not me. I'm a grown up now. And I feel like maybe it's hitting a little too close to home for me, being like, oh, I'm a grown up. I don't need to care about the things I cared about in high school, which I think is funny. So maybe that's why I'm not loving this as much, is I was really able to like dig into and reminisce with how obsessed she was when she was a 17-year-old, and this dynamic is a little too close to home. I will say this whole slasher situation kicks off much faster in the second book than it did in My Heart is a Chainsaw. We've got some history papers written to a different history teacher by a different person. We've got all the same elements that were in the first book, but for some reason, it's not feeling as compulsively readable to me, even though it is faster paced and more things are happening and there is true slasher all the way through. For me personally, it's feeling less compulsively readable, but I am still really enjoying it. I'm so excited to get through the rest of it. I don't know if I told you how far I am into it. I'm about halfway through. Oh, I did get some book mail earlier this weekend, and Dan and I opened them together. So let's go back to that footage and I'll get you caught up on all the things that have come in the mail. Dan and I just got back from dinner, and we have packages to open. So let's see what we got. What do you think it's gonna be? You don't know what video this is for, do you?
Oh, I bet this is gonna be a good one.
A good one.
I have a feeling.
Yeah. Lone Women by Victor Lavelle. I am very excited about this. A woman with a past, a mysterious trunk, a town on the edge of nowhere, and a bracing new vision of the American West, from the award-winning author of The Changeling.
I like the art on it.
Yeah? You're blocking the whole camera.
I bet I am. Yep.
We just went to an art museum and we had a fun time looking at all of the art.
It seemed like I like the traditional stuff clearly the most, and then you're like 50-50 on it.
Yeah, I like any art that really shows some part of the human condition, whether that's like art about people living their lives or where you can like really feel the artist and the thoughts that they were feeling when they made the art.
And the new stuff, you can definitely get their feelings more.
Yeah.
Tell us in the comments, guys, what you think about modern art versus the traditional stuff. What do they think?
We had stickers, look at them. This is so cute. Little book.
Webster, no.
Go away, I am reading. Very cute.
It's all slobbered
Webster.
out.
Okay, Webster really likes this one. It's covered in dog fur. Read more. And a thank you.
Oh, someone just shipped it for you?
This is on, I ordered these off of Pango Books, which if you haven't heard of it, is a fantastic site for reselling books. I personally have only used it to purchase books, but I've had a fantastic experience, especially if something's like been a book of the month book, like Lone Women is. I think I bought this for like $4 or $5, so I love Pango. I think this one has a good chance of winning the entire Goodreads Choice Awards, so it has both, I think, one of the 10 highest ratings of all the nominees and also 10 highest readerships. Our Share of Night. This is a chunky book. I'm worried. Oh my god. It's almost 600 pages. That font is small. Kazu Ishiguro blurb this? Okay. A woman's mysterious death puts her husband and son on a collision course with her demonic family in the first novel to be translated into English by the International Booker Prize shortlisted author of The Dangers of Smoking in Bed. I did not know this was from the same author as The Dangers of Smoking in Bed. The most exciting discovery I've made in fiction for some time. Okay, I'm even more excited to read this now. Fantastic. Okay, we're gonna go meet up with some friends. I will see you guys later. Hello, Thanksgiving is imminent. My parents are inbound. I am running around like a chicken with my head cut off trying to get everything ready. I think I finally managed to get all of the groceries. The reason why I've turned the camera on is because we need to talk about My Heart is a Chainsaw, not My Heart is a Chainsaw. Don't Fear the Reaper. I finished it. We need to chat about it. I think unfortunately it's gonna land at about a 3-star for me. I enjoyed my time reading this book because it was a sequel to My Heart is a Chainsaw, and that book was perfect. I have no notes on My Heart is a Chainsaw. I loved that book so much, and I think Don't Fear the Reaper, it can't be as good as My Heart is a Chainsaw. So if you've read My Heart is a Chainsaw and loved it, I would recommend picking up Don't Fear the Reaper. I think it does kind of have that sequel syndrome. I know I've been using this term a lot lately to mean different things, and I'm sorry, but it feels like kind of that point in like a TV show where things have to keep getting more and more and more over the top, and there's just twists left and right because you gotta one-up the thing that we did before. That's kind of how this felt to me. So I didn't end up loving it as much as My Heart is a Chainsaw, but I still will be reading the third book in this trilogy 100%. I still very much enjoyed my time reading this. I'm talking myself into like a 3.5. That's what I'm feeling so far. I have absolutely no idea what we're reading next, but I will see you tomorrow. Hello friends, hopefully I can finish this update before we lose light. I am out here playing laser pointer with my dog because he is an overgrown cat. I'm halfway through Natural Beauty and I want to chat to you guys about this today because I think I'm not gonna be able to put this down. I think I'm gonna end up finishing this tonight. So in this book, we are following an unnamed narrator. It's feeling so similar to Rouge by Mona Awad. We are very concerned with the beauty industry, obviously with the title Natural Beauty. We have this kind of beauty industry savior coming out of nowhere, weird culty vibe situation, just like in Rouge, right when our character is at a bad place in her life. So in Rouge, it was when her mother died. And in this book, something has now happened to her parents as well. So the mother-daughter, parent-child relationships are definitely present here. It's also feeling very similar to Light from Uncommon Stars because our main character in this book is a gifted pianist, and she started playing piano when she was 6, and she goes to this conservancy. And one of the things I loved so much about Light from Uncommon Stars was that music aspect. And in that book, it's a violin, and I was saying how much I related to how I grew up playing piano, and in this book, it's piano that she plays. And it's so, so, so cool to see those depictions of an instrument that I actually play. And this is actually so perfect for this week because my parents are coming to stay with me for Thanksgiving. I love my parents so much, and I cannot believe they're doing this for me. But we had a piano growing up in our house, and they just moved and they took the piano with them, and they now don't think they have space for it, don't think they have a use for it. So they've asked me if I want the piano, and my sweet, sweet parents are going to drive 8 hours from Florida to bring me a piano, and they're giving me their old dining room table, and I am just beyond grateful that I have parents who would do such a thing for me. So The piano journey is strong with this book, and it's just the perfect time for me to be reading this. I'm sure you can tell with a smile on my face. I'm loving it. It's feeling so slow. When I went to Barnes & Noble to pick this out, it wasn't in the horror section, it was in the literary fiction section, and I think it really does fit there. It's feeling very woman eating type vibes. I'm really curious to see how much the horror picks up, but right now it's feeling like a mix of Rouge by Mona Awad, woman eating, Light from Uncommon Stars. That's feeling like the vibe. Hello, it's been a while since we've last spoken. I have had a Thanksgiving with my family. My parents came to visit and it was so lovely. I'm sat here with leftover pie and a cup of tea on Webster's new dog bed. They bought him a dog bed while they were here, which was so sweet of them. So we have some books to open, some things have come in the mail. It's been so long since I ordered these, I don't even remember which ones have yet to come in. We are really getting down to the wire. I'm kind of worried about what we have to go because I think the second round opens in like 2 or 3 days. We're a little behind. Okay. Does that smell good, buddy? Ah, it's My Heart is a Chainsaw, which is technically not part of the Goodreads Choice Awards for this year, but I love this book so much. I think I'm gonna give this as a Christmas present to, I'm not telling you who because they might be watching this video. I think I'm gonna give this as a Christmas present because it was just so good. If you have a friend who's a fan of slashers, excellent Christmas present. Yes, I am using a corkscrew wine key to open these boxes. This must be Sisters of the Lost Nation. Yes. I literally have never read the description on this, but I am excited. So let's read it together. A young native girl's hunt for answers about the women mysteriously disappearing from her tribe's reservation leads her to delve into the myths and stories of her people, all while being haunted herself in this atmospheric and stunningly poignant debut. Women may vanish, legends may be forgotten, but she will always remember. That means that we now have 6 of the top 20. I think this is everything that I'm going to purchase physically. I might go pick up a copy of Don't Fear the Reaper today because Barnes & Noble is doing a Black Friday sale. And I really loved this guy and I would like to have the sequel. Reading has also been done, but Sully is eyeing my pie and he's already stolen a slice of this pie from me. This is the last piece, so I'm gonna go eat my pie and then we'll come back and I will tell you what I have read in the meantime. Pie has been eaten. I have finished reading Natural Beauty and I'm sat here at my piano and I'm so happy to have this in my house. Once again, cannot express how grateful I am to my parents for bringing me all of their old furniture. Thank you so much. I haven't found all of my piano books yet, but I do have some things here, so I'm excited to start playing again. I haven't been able to play in like 10 years and I just obviously cannot shut up about it. So stay tuned for more progress updates on that in future videos. But let's talk about this. I have finished it. I was right. I could not put it down. My parents arrived on Wednesday night and we were catching up and chatting and hanging out in the living room. And then after we went to bed, I stayed up way too late to finish this book because it was exceptional. I love this. I think this is my favorite thing that I have read so far in the actual Goodreads Choice Awards. I think My Heart is a Chainsaw is above this, but in comparison with Don't Fear the Reaper, I think I like this more. So here's my ranking. We also have to talk about all the things that I have read before this video, but let me get through this and we'll do that in a little bit. I've also read like 6 books before this video starts and we'll do those in a bit, I promise. But right now let's stay focused and chat about Natural Beauty. I think the choices made, and this is such a short horror book. I love short horror. It's 250 pages and it really packs a punch. This book has a lot to say about a lot of different things. Like I said, the parent-child relationships are definitely portrayed in this. We also have this culty spa. I loved the conversations in here about beauty standards and specifically Western beauty standards and what that looks like. And just the metamorphosis that our characters go through in here is so interesting. It has a lot to say about beauty and the privilege that it affords, and also what being not beautiful has to say about how you live your life and how people look at you and interact with you, what it feels like to have that stereotypical perfect beauty, and also how kind of freeing it can be to be so far away from that that you don't even have to play the game. In just 250 pages, our author showed us this exceptional look into the beauty industry, talked a lot about different beauty standards and the racism that's present in the beauty industry in a really subtle way. Like, for example, our main character, we never know her name. We don't know her actual Chinese name, but we do know the Americanized name that she's asked to choose to go by at work so that she can be more palatable to the people who are buying these beauty treatments from her. This book is filled with small details like that that really pack a punch. I can't say enough good things about this. I am really excited to read more from this author in the future. Okay, on to the next book. It is time to start updating you on the things I read prior to starting filming this video that were in the Goodreads Choice Awards. So let's start with Rouge by Mona Awad. I was so excited to find out that this was in Libro FM's advanced listener copies. So I actually got to listen to this audiobook for free from Libro FM, so thank you to Libro FM. A couple of the other books on here are from Libro FM as well. So I don't have a physical copy because I read it as an ALC. The cover of this, stunning. I love the cover of Rouge. This book is about the beauty industry. It actually has a lot of parallels to natural beauty, which is why I'm slotting it in right after you've heard me talk about that book. I would say out of the two, I did prefer my read of natural beauty. I felt like it really respected my time, and I felt like it had a lot more to say in a shorter number of pages, and I always love a book that respects my time, especially horror. That said, I really enjoyed Rouge by Mona Awad. This is probably a 4-star. I think Natural Beauty is probably a 4.5. We are following our main character. Her mother has just died, and she goes to kind of clean out her apartment, have her funeral, all of those things that you need to do after someone passes. And she finds this culty spa and starts going for treatments, and there's this little undercurrent of magic, really dark magic that's running through the whole thing. This book put me in a bad mood. I felt so unsettled. It opens with our main character's mother telling her this dark fairy tale as she's going to sleep, and I just really loved the narration style. I really loved how the book ended. I really loved the mother-daughter relationship that we explored throughout this book. I will tell you throughout this video that I don't tend to love horror that has a comforting ending, but it really worked for me with Rouge, and I really did enjoy this book. Even though it was weird and confusing and at times hard to understand or grasp, but that's Mona Awad for you, and I really do love all of her stuff. Okay, on to the next book. Okay, since we last spoke, I have cut my hair. I was going for French girl, and I think I got Dutch boy, but that's fine. I've also devoured Monstrilio, pun intended. Let's chat about it. I have notes. The notes were on the laptop, but we have them now. Okay, Monstrilio is a masterpiece. I absolutely love this. I think this is my favorite thing that I have read so far. It's definitely 5 stars. I love a Frankenstein story. Frankenstein is one of my favorite books of all time, so I always love a monster story in which we really get to understand the monster, and it's more about what makes a human than it is about what makes a monster. And I know I already compared woman eating to natural beauty, but I'm gonna compare it to Monstrilio as well, because woman eating was such a modern day Frankenstein, and I think Monstrilio very much is as well. It is such a story about what it is to be human and what it is to be a monster. And it's also this incredible story about grief. So we open this story with this woman whose son has just died, and she's very obviously grieving for him, and she ends up cutting out a piece of his lung and keeping it. And then down the line, she starts feeding this lung, and it grows into this monster, and they call the monster Monstrilio. I love horror that has to do with grief. It is one of the scariest things in this world, is losing someone that you love. And the way that this horror just really digs into the things that we are willing to do in order to alleviate some of that grief and the placeholders that we put in place to try to make up for something that we have lost. It was just a really beautiful book. We're also following 4 different perspectives in here. So we start following the mother of this child who has died, and then we follow the father, and then we follow their friend, and then finally we do get Monstrilio's perspective as well. One of my favorite things about the way that these perspectives work is, arguably, I don't think we're in the perspective of the person when the most important event that they perform, that they do in the book happens. So when something really big happens with Monstrilio, we're not in his head. When something really big happens with this mother, we're not in her head. We're watching this through other people's eyes. And I feel like it's this really interesting commentary on what it is to be understood and what it is to be unknown. And I just ate it up, you guys. I loved this so much. Sully is desperately asking for pets and he's bumping my tripod. But I love Monstrilio. I love this so much. I really want to get myself a physical copy of this. I think this is something that I could reread over and over again. Yeah, it's exceptional, and I really hope it makes the top 10. But yeah, that was Monstrilio. I loved it. I'm gonna go pick up my next book. I'm not sure what we're reading next, but you guys will see in just a few seconds. It is finally time to talk about my favorite book that I read before I started filming this video, which is The September House. I've been searching for cozy horror that I liked, and this is the first one that I found, and I ate it up. I ate up every second of this. This book was 5 stars, and I'm so happy that I found a 5-star cozy horror. I've been searching for a while for 5-star cozy horror. I think my favorite cozy horror is over the top, absurd, funny, but is still scary. And I love when we get a found family in cozy horror as well, and this book had all of that. Our main character and her husband move into this house that's their dream house. They can't believe it's so cheap. We open with this walkthrough of the house with this real estate agent who's trying to tell them about all of the murders and deaths that have happened in this house without scaring them away, and they're just so oblivious and in awe of this house that they don't even care. They're like, oh yeah, a house this old, there's bound to be some deaths happen. No worries. Once they move into the house, as we get closer to September, things start to ramp up. Once we hit September, we are in full-blown blood seeping out of the walls, ghosties appearing, trying to bite our main character. It gets crazy, and I loved it. I loved it so much. We have these moments where, there's one moment in particular where our main character is trying to have this very serious conversation with her daughter because her daughter comes to visit because her husband goes missing. Our main character doesn't seem to be too bothered by that, but the daughter is very interested in figuring out what happened to her father. So she comes to visit. She's never been to visit before, and she comes to visit in the month of September. And so our main character, she's running around doing all these things to try to keep the ghosties at bay. She gets a priest to come exorcise the house, and then eventually things start to ramp up, and this daughter's basically having this like intervention with her, and they're having this super serious conversation, and there's just all of these ghosts around her. She's distracted by all these ghosts being horrible, and it was one of the funniest scenes and scariest scenes that I've ever experienced, and that's the cozy horror that I like. I love this book so much. If you've been looking for cozy horror that you like and you haven't found it yet, please pick this up. I will say, check content warnings before you read this. Obviously, if you have sensitivities, you should always check content warnings for any of these books and any book that you read, but I often don't check content warnings because I don't want to spoil a book for myself, but a content warning is never a spoiler. You guys know what I mean. Anyways, I didn't check the content warnings, and I was a little bit caught off guard with something that was in this book, and I should have checked them. So if you do have sensitivities, I would check them for this book. Take care of yourselves. Okay, that's all I have to say. I loved it. Let's find out what I'm reading next. Good morning, friends. I've been having a bit of a health situation over the past couple of days, so I have not been updating you, but it is the 28th. The top 10 are now out, so we need to look at them together. So I'm gonna be a little bit less high energy than usual because I'm in a lot of pain right now, but let's look at this top 10 so I can go sit in bed and read. Before we look, here are my predictions. I think we'll see How to Sell a Haunted House, Holly, Our Share of Night, A House with Good Bones, Lone Woman, The September House, Silver Nitrate, Vampires of El Norte, and then I'm hoping we'll see Don't Fear the Reaper. I'm hoping we'll see Rouge. I'm really hoping we'll see Monstrilio. And I think maybe Natural Beauty will be in there because I feel like a lot of fiction girlies may have read that who wouldn't have read some of the other horror, if that makes sense. Okay, I don't even know if that was 10, but those are my predictions. Let's look at horror. I'm so scared. I really don't want to see Holly here because I don't want to have to read. I think it's like the 3rd book in a series. Okay, Our Share of Night is on here, which is great because I've already started reading it. Vampires of El Norte is on here, which is also great because I have already read it. Silver Nitrate, A House with Good Bones, How to Sell a Haunted House, The September House. This is fantastic. I have read or am currently reading all of the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, Lone Women is on here. which I'm really excited to see because I did purchase that. I don't really want to read My Darling Girl, and I can't explain it to you other than I hate the cover. I really hope the last one is Monstrilio. I don't want to read it. And Holly's on there. I really don't want to read Holly because I'm not reading the first 2 books. Okay, wait, how many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 9. There's only 1 left. What have we not seen? Okay, well, I'm also currently reading Mystery Magic, so I kind of hope that's on there, but I'd rather see Rouge or Don't Fear the Reaper or Natural Beauty or Monstrilio or Sisters of the Lost Nation. I bought that. I really want to read that. Or Dead 11 I want to read. Or The Reformatory, but that just came out, so I don't think there's enough readers where that's gonna make it. Okay, please be Monstrilio. Ugh, it's Rouge. It's Rouge. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I think we only have 4 books left to read then. Only 4 books left to read, which is almost half of the top. Okay, yeah, I'm in trouble a little bit. This is not how I expected this to go. Shoot, I was hoping that I would see Natural Beauty or Monstrilio on there. They have really high ratings, but I guess just not enough readers. I wasn't planning on reading My Darling Girl. I was really hoping I didn't have to read Holly, so I need to go acquire some books, and I will see you later. Hello, it is very cold. I am wearing a jacket inside. I have finished 30% of Lone Women, and I feel like I need to talk to you about it now because it seems to be going very quickly, and something has just gone down that I think is gonna kick off the rest of the book. So I think we've had our exposition. We've met our main character. She has moved away from her childhood home, from her family home, because something went down. And we're slowly starting to learn more details about that incident. And she basically leaves home but with nothing but a steamer trunk. And there's something in the trunk. And when the trunk is opened, bad things happen, and we have just found out what is in the trunk, and it is spooky scary, ladies and gentlemen. It's kind of giving cozy horror a little bit because we have this woman who's moving to this small town in the middle of nowhere. She's bought this plot of land and she's going to live there for 3 years. I think after 3 years she like gets ownership of the land. I'm a little bit confused on the logistics of the buying this land. I'm gonna be real with you guys. But she has to be there for 3 years and then she gets it, I think, question mark. She's met some people along the way. Some people are being very nice to her. It's kind of feeling like a cozy horror a little bit because we have this woman moving to this small town. She's new there. Everyone's interested in meeting her and some people are being very nice to her. It's feeling a little found family. But I'm assuming that the thing in the steamer trunk is gonna throw a wrench in the cozy comfort because it has already spilt some blood. Those are my initial thoughts. I don't think I have much to say. It wasn't feeling very horror until now, and I'm interested to see if it's gonna pick up because a third of the way into the book, I feel like not much has happened. So I'm interested to see where we go. Hello, I'm editing this right now and I realized I never gave you a final update on Lone Women. I don't know how that escaped my memory, but let's talk about this. I really wanted to love this. And I think, I don't know, maybe it was just because it's slotted in amongst a bunch of different horror. I'm gonna get burnt out. I'm gonna get burnt out of horror doing a video like this. And I think maybe I was kind of there when I read this. I didn't end up loving it as much as I wanted to. I think it's a 3-star. It's a 3-star. Most of the things I'm reading in this video are a 3-star, and that kind of sucks. But I will say, I'm not typically a person who loves historical fiction. I'm not typically a person who reads a ton of literary fiction, and this feels like a historical literary fiction horror. If that sounds up your alley, highly encourage you to read this. I don't think I gave this book the time, probably, that it deserved. I read it all in one day, which is why I was surprised that I never updated you on this book. I really did enjoy the ending. I tend to not like horror that has kind of an uplifting or hopeful ending. I think it was necessary for the book that this was trying to be. I think the author completed their objective here. I just didn't love it. Like, I think it was very successful in what it was trying to do. It's just not really my type of story. Like I said, I don't really love historical fiction. I don't really love historical horror. I did really love the beginning of this and this woman with this trunk and this secret, and it did, like I said, kind of feel cozy in the way that we have this woman moving to this new town. And I think it ended up in a cozy place despite having a lot of gore and horror along the way, and I did enjoy it. Just not as much as some of the other things on here. It's been kind of a weird year for horror. That's what I have to say on Lone Women. If you loved it, I'm so happy for you. I wouldn't discourage anyone from picking this up. It just wasn't my favorite thing. All right, on to the next book. popping in to tell you about another book that I finished before this video started, which is T. Kingfisher's A House with Good Bones. T. Kingfisher is my favorite author, so I would hope that I were coming on here to say this is my favorite thing that I read before this video started, and unfortunately, I don't think it was. This one wasn't a miss, but I didn't love it as much as I loved The Hollow Places and The Twisted Ones. I think I prefer T. Kingfisher's longer horror. So in this one, we are following our main character. She's going to live with her mother for a period of time. Her mother has moved into her grandmother's house, and the house feels like it's reverting back to how her grandmother wanted it to be before. Like the photos on the wall and the wallpaper and the furniture and everything feels like it's like reverting back to how grandma wants it to be. There's a vulture in here, a vulture animal companion. I ate this up. I loved the facts that I learned about vultures. Apparently, they throw up when they're stressed, and I think that's adorable and hilarious, and I want to pet a vulture. New life goal unlocked. Thank you to this book, but I wanted more vulture. T. Kingfisher does an excellent animal companion, and I wanted more vulture out of this book. This is short horror, and I will continue to say throughout this video that I love a horror book that respects your time. I love a short horror, but I disagree when it comes to T. Kingfisher. I want her to write longer horror. I love her longer horror because the way that this book went, as crazy as it got at the end, I needed it to be there for longer. I love exactly everything that happened here, but I wanted 100 more pages after the thing that happens at the end. If you know, you know. I wanted to be in that space for so much longer. I love a gothic horror. I love the way that this whole thing was set up, but I wanted more vulture. And I wanted more horror. I just wanted to be in this for longer. And I think that's my biggest critique of this. But I did love all of the pages that I got to read. I just wished that there were more of them. I also love how in a lot of T. Kingfisher's books, horror, romance, fantasy, everything that she writes, I love how oftentimes our main character's profession, their job, will be a big part of the book. And our main character in this book studies insects. And I love hearing about her and her job and how her knowledge of insects informs her view as a character. I really love when that happens in books. Okay, that's what I have to say about this. On to the next book. Welcome to my brand new couch. I'm having a rough day. I've been crying. I don't know if you can tell. I had a rough night last night. There's a lot going on. My car won't start. My health is not doing great physically, mentally. I feel bad. But I have gotten 150 pages into Our Share of Night. This is a beefy book. This is such a thick book, and I am intimidated, and it has taken me so long to read 150 pages, and I am worried that I will not be able to complete this video because I still have, it is currently, what day is it? It's the 30th of November. I have 3 days to finish all of these books and vote. I have most of this behemoth to finish, and then I also have to read Holly by Stephen King and My Darling Girl, I think it's called, by Jennifer McMahon. And then, isn't there another one? Is there another one? Please tell me there's not another one. This is too many books. Yes, okay, thankfully. Those are the only 3. That's 3 books in 3 days is what we will be doing. I'm going to Florida this weekend with Dan, and I am very excited to go on this trip, but honestly, I don't want to do anything today. I'm having a bad day, and I just want to sit on this lovely new couch that is way too big for my living room and just read these books. Let's talk about the books. This is going well. I think I was a little worried, a little intimidated when I got into this. It's moving quite slowly, and I was worried about staying invested in this, but we have just, and about 150 pages in, switched perspectives, which I didn't know there were multiple perspectives. I'm sure that maybe it tells you in the the blurb that I didn't read, but, oh yeah, it totally tells you. We're moving back and forth in time, from London in the swinging 1960s to the brutal years of Argentina's military dictatorship and its turbulent aftermath. Our Share of Night is a novel like no other. A family story, a ghost story, a story of the occult and the supernatural, a book about the complexities of love and longing with queer subplots and themes. That's what the blurb says. Maybe I should have read that before I read the book, but say lovey, here we are. We have met our 2 main characters. We have this father who has a lot of health issues, who is also the medium for this occult cult. It's scary. The like demon thing that they call the darkness possesses him, and it's quite dark and quite scary, and I'm having a great time. He has a lot of health issues, which I'm not loving reading about, having my own health issues, but I like him as a character. His wife has died. The cult is like trying to take control of his son. His son is like starting to show some magical abilities, and he is trying to protect his son. This guy is also having relationships with like pretty much everybody. I'm pretty sure he's had sexual encounters with at least 3 or 4 people at this point in the book, and none of them have been his wife. Well, I guess she's dead, so that's probably a good thing. But anyways, a lot's going on in here. I can't tell you if I'm enjoying it. I love demon-y occult stuff in books. That always is a fun thing to read. But yeah, I'm intrigued, but I feel like this would be a really easy book to DNF if I weren't reading it for a video, because it is so chunky, and I feel like I don't really know. There doesn't seem to be a lot of urgency at this moment to like keep me going. But we have just switched perspectives. We're now following the doctor who basically saved the dad. What's his name? I'm sorry. One, he had all these health issues as a child. This doctor basically saw that he had magical occult abilities and adopted him, took him from his parents so they could basically use him in this cult, saved his life. So now we are following the doctor guy, and I am interested to see what this doctor dude is gonna have to say. I'm also curious to see how many perspectives we're gonna get in here. That's my update. I'm going to go back to work in my little couch bed because that's what I need today. Hello friends, I look a little crazy because I just got back from a trip and I am exhausted and I want to go to sleep so badly, but it is the last day that I can vote in the Goodreads Choice Awards, which means I need to vote in the Goodreads Choice Awards. But I have to be honest with you guys. I have not done what I set out to do. I wanted to read the top 10 and I wasn't able to. And my camera's about to die, which is, it makes sense with this week. Let's fix that. Okay, back with a new battery and our stack of books. So I'm halfway through reading Our Share of Night, and I think I'm gonna keep reading it. I'm not gonna DNF it, but it's not gonna be my favorite thing that I've read in this video. And I'm so bummed because I set out to read the top 10. Because I'm reading so many books in this video, I haven't really been taking you guys along for the behind the scenes of like my actual life, but it's been rough. I'm not having a good time. My car is currently dead. Well, will not start. I was just away this weekend with Dan to go to a friend's charity gala, and it was incredible and I had such a good time. And I've just felt stressed while I was there because I knew that I was not putting in the time and effort that I needed to for this video, and that's I don't think you guys care. Like, I think you would rather that I enjoy my life than try to do something that's too ambitious, and I think I just bit off more than I could chew with this video, and I don't want to do that anymore. And you know what? I'm not really sure what I want to do with this video at this point, but I do know that we should vote because we can't vote after tonight, and I think we should do that together. So let's vote. Goodreads Choice Awards 2023 in the horror category. I'm really bummed that Monstrillo is not in here. I think that's what I would have voted for. I think looking at this list, I have read some of 8 of these 10, so I'm almost there. I think unfortunately I'm voting for the September House, and I'm saying unfortunately because I think objectively this book definitely has more to say. I feel like Silver Nitrate, Vampires of El Norte, even How to Sell a Haunted House, Lone Women, Rouge, they all have the commentary that I love in horror. And they're all saying something more important than the September House is, in my opinion. But the September House was a good time. I was entertained. I was scared. It was cozy. It was absurd. I laughed out loud. It's my first 5-star cozy horror, and it's what I'm voting for. And that's that. We have voted. Fantastic. I'm gonna vote in the rest of the categories. If you want to hang out with me while we do that, you can. Otherwise, I'll leave timestamps if you want to skip to when we figure out what we're doing with the rest of this video. If you're even seeing this, I don't know. Okay, in fiction, I think I am gonna vote for Yellowface. That is the only thing that I have read, and I did enjoy it, so we're voting for Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. Historical fiction, I don't think I've read any of. Nope, I haven't. Let's see, mystery and thriller. Oh, I have read The Only One Left, but I didn't love it, so I don't really want to vote for it. Romance, I am going to vote for Happy Place because I really, really loved it. And I want to know what you guys thought of the Abby Jimenez that was nominated this year because I really loved Part of Your World, and I want to know if you guys liked yours truly. Okay, Romantasy, I am voting for Fourth Wing because obviously. Fantasy category, I'm so excited. I think the video that I'm going to start filming tomorrow, I'm going to be reading Trust the Emerald Sea and Bookshops and Bone Dust. So I'm very excited for that. I need some coziness in my life right now, I think. Ooh, I'm definitely voting for The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi because I absolutely love that book. Okay, science fiction. I also want to read more of these. I think I'll be voting for the Murderbot Diaries book because I did really enjoy that one. I'm not voting in the young adult categories. Let's vote in debut novel though. I think The Bandit Queens is in here. Yeah, that's definitely what I want to vote for. The September House is also in here, but I'm voting for The Bandit Queens because I love that book. I think that'll be in my top 10 of the year. I don't know what my top 10 is going to look like. It's been kind of a weird year for reading for me. I haven't read any of the nonfictions. I don't feel like I want to vote for Spare, but that's the only biography or autobiography I've read. I haven't read any of the biographies, but I did get Dan the Wager. I didn't know it was nonfiction, so I'm interested to see if any of y'all read it. Did you like it? Should I? He hasn't started reading it yet, but he's almost done with the book that he's reading now. I haven't read any of Humor. And that's that. We have now voted in the Career Choice Awards. I'm pretty disappointed, actually, in the way that this turned out, but I hope that you enjoyed this. I will see you in a couple of days, and we will decide what we're doing with this. I apologize for being so low energy. It's just been a week, you guys. It's just been a week. It's been, you know, life is happening, and it keeps happening, and that's that. I'll see you later. Hello. It's been a couple of days. I've decided that we're still doing this. We're gonna read as much as we can. I'm gonna hang out with you guys until the winners are announced, which I think is happening tomorrow. We're just gonna read as many things as we can until then, and then we'll decide if we want to keep reading past when the winners are announced. But I finished reading Our Share of Night, so we need to chat about this. And I have too many books in my hands. This was a 600-page horror book, and I don't think I've ever had that experience before outside of maybe House of Leaves. I don't know if long horror is for me. If I had to give this a rating, I think it would be 3. So I loved aspects of this. I really loved, there's some like more cosmic-y type horror in here that I really did love. And this idea of like the other place and the creepy stuff that was going on in there felt very kind of hollow places in a way. There was also a haunted house portion of this that I ate up, but I feel like those portions of true horror were just not enough of the overall book for me to really enjoy this as much as I was hoping that I would. But I will say this is the most connected to characters that I have ever been reading a horror book because it is so long. And we do get to follow them for so much of their lives. And I kind of feel similarly about the different perspectives in here that I do about the way that it worked in Monstrilio. I felt like in that book, I told you guys, I felt like we weren't in the character's head when the biggest thing happened to them. And I kind of felt that similarly here. And we were watching people go through these really big decisions without knowing their reasoning, without being in their head when they made those decisions. And I've never really experienced that before reading these 2 books. And I have to say, I love it. I think it's this really interesting commentary because usually when we read a book, because it's a book, we get to be in characters' heads when they're making these decisions. We get to understand their reasoning, but that's not how real life works. We don't get to understand what people's reasoning is for making a decision that on the outside might look particularly awful. And I really loved how it was done in both of these books. I felt like ultimately this is too long of a horror for me. I think this would be a really great horror for people who don't really like horror. And what I mean by that is if you're typically a person who reads super long historical fiction, literary fiction books, and you want to try horror, this would be a really awesome place for you to start because it's going to feel really familiar and it's going to have those little pieces of horror in it. And so if you're not super sure that you love horror, it won't be too much of the book, but you can try it out with this one. That's all I'm gonna say on this. I took both the dust jackets off because I read the first chapter of both of these last night. So Dead 11 and Sisters of the Lost Nation are the 2 books that I have left that I purchased for this video physically. And then I also have on audiobook the opportunity to read Mr. Magic, The Reformatory, Holly, and My Darling Girl. So those are kind of our options. Here's what I've kind of decided that I want to do. I desperately want to read Sisters of the Lost Nation because it says there's a disembodied entity that stalks her every step, and I want that. So I'm going to be reading this physically, and then I also am going to pick up Mr. Magic because I actually got maybe about 30% of the way into this book on audio when I didn't know what the top 10 was, and then I stopped reading it to prioritize other things once we found out what the top 10 was. But I was really, really liking it, so I really want to go back to that. I'm gonna wait to give you my initial thoughts on it until I'm halfway through because I haven't listened to it in a while and I want to kind of get back into the story before I try to do that. So I will see you when I'm halfway through Mr. Magic. I'm 37% into Mr. Magic, and I think it's time to talk about it because I think some stuff is about to go down and I'd like to chat to you before it happens. First of all, let's talk about my history with this author. So this is the same author who wrote Hyde. I did not read Hyde, but I did watch a lot of other people not enjoy their experience of reading Hyde. So I was a little bit weary of picking this author up. But if I'm gonna be so honest with you, the premise of this sounded so spooky in just the right way because we were following a group of kids in this television show that has been like wiped from the face of the earth. You cannot find recordings of this. And people are remembering it ending in a really bad way, but no one can find any evidence that this TV show existed. The TV show is called Mr. Magic. And we're following this girl who is in the show. Our dad has like kept her hidden away from the entire world. And then when he passes, she ends up the other kids find her because she posts his funeral like on Facebook. They find her and she doesn't remember being on the show at all. And they're like going to this cast reunion. There's like a podcast interview, but there's some spooky stuff going down. So they go back to the place where it was filmed, and oh my goodness, it feels so haunted house in all the right ways. I love a haunted house story, and the house is just described as looking and feeling wrong. And I'm sorry, that's the spookiest thing. I love it so much. I'm absolutely eating this up. I'm really, really loving this, and I'm really happy that that's going that way. I'm so grateful for this video because I don't think I would have picked this up if it hadn't been in the Goodreads Choice Awards because I knew that people didn't love Hyde, and so I was thinking, you know what, I'll let other people read it, and if they tell me it's exceptional, then I will pick it up. But I'm kind of loving it. So let me know in the comments, have you guys read this? Did you do the same thing that I did and decide not to pick it up because of Hyde? I'm eating it up. I'm really excited. I hope that it continues getting spookier and spookier. Our main character is just about to meet her mom, who she presumed was dead. And I'm excited. Some stuff went down at the end of this TV show. I just think like a kid's show being scary is just probably one of the spookiest things. And I'm excited. I have reading to do. I have work to do. I will see y'all later. We have a lot to get done today, so we're gonna chat about Mr. Magic while I get ready because I just finished it on my morning walk and I have mixed thoughts about it. Last I spoke to you, I was really enjoying it, and it kind of lost me in the like middle chunk of the book, and I'm trying to unpack that because the acknowledgement in here was incredible, and it really, like looking back on it, feels like such a personal book because we are following these children who grew up in this space where they were forced to conform to a very rigid set of rules. It really feels like throughout the book the author is trying to tell herself and to tell us as readers and to tell the kids in this book that they can be whoever they are and that's okay. And then in the acknowledgement she talks about how she used to be Mormon and is not anymore, and how she felt like growing up she wasn't allowed to be who she is. This book being a very personal book, and how she wanted to unpack that journey for herself. And for those reasons, I thought it was fantastic. I'm not gonna rate it. I think there's a lot of times where an author writes a book because it's a passion project, or an author writes a book because they heard something somewhere and it just sticks in their head and they really want to write a book about it. Those tend to be my favorite books. There are a lot of books that an author writes because it's their job. Those books I tend to enjoy. And then there are a lot of books that an author writes because they need to write it. And I feel like if I need to hear those same things that the author needed to hear and process with their writing, they're like my favorite books of all time. But if I don't relate to those things, then they end up not hitting as hard. And I think that's kind of what happened in this book is I think if you grew up in a very like strict religious community or another community that doesn't let you be a kid and be who you are, then I think this book is going to be really, really powerful for you. But if that's not something that you are currently processing or currently need to process, I think this is just like a fun horror that has a really comforting ending. And I tend to not love comforting endings in my horror. It's changed a little bit this year, but it tends to not be my favorite horror. That's what I'll say about Mr. Magic. I am really so happy that I read it in this video because I don't think I would have if not for this video, because I heard, oh, I think the dog just bumped my camera. Did the dog bump my camera? What was I saying? I'm glad that it was in the Goodreads Choice Awards because after seeing people not love, sorry, I can't do eyeliner and talk. After watching people not love Hyde, I wasn't sure if I wanted to pick up another book by this author, and I am really glad that I did because this was good, and I would read other things by Kirsten White in the future. Okay, that's all I have to say about Mr. Magic. I'm gonna finish doing this because the winner has been announced and I haven't looked yet. That's what we're gonna do as soon as I'm ready, so I'll see you in the other room to announce the winner. Okay, it's time to announce the winner. I have two things to say to you before we look. The first thing I'm gonna say is this is my prediction for the winner because it has the most number of readers and it has a super high rating. This is what I think is gonna win. It's either gonna be this or it's gonna be Holly. If it's Holly, I will read. If the winner is Holly, I will read it because look, I don't want to. I've never read a Stephen King horror. I read his fantasy book, Fairy Tale, last year in the Goodreads Choice Awards and I enjoyed it. But I don't feel like my first experience with Stephen King horror should be the third book in a series when I haven't read the other two. It seems like I'm not setting Mr. King up for success, so I don't want to read it, but if it wins, I will read it so that we can complete this video. This is my prediction. I'm gonna put it there, and we're gonna take a lookie. Okay, horror category. The winner is... Oh, no! It's Holly. Heck, that's not what I wanted. Okay, I guess we're reading Holly now. Shoot. Oh my god, Our Share of Night is like very far down there. It placed 9th? Wow, I must be really out of it. How to Sell a Haunted House is 2. House for Good Bones is 3rd. Then we have Vampires of El Norte and Rouge. Okay, that makes so much sense. Those 4 I feel like are like the biggest 4 horror books that came out this year. I read them all in the month that they were released. Well, except for How to Sell a Haunted House. Then we have My Darling Girl, September House, Silver Nitrate. I feel like a lot of people didn't love Silver Nitrate, but a lot of people read it. Okay, interesting. Okay, those are the results of the Goodreads Choice Awards for horror in 2023. I am gonna go read Holly, I guess. I will at least try it. If it's super confusing and I need a DNF, I reserve the right to do so. And you know what? This video doesn't have to go up until Sunday, so it's Thursday right now. We're gonna keep reading as much as we can until the video needs to go live. That was not how I wanted that to go. Actually, will you tell me in the comments, since I am reading Holly, I feel like I need to redeem, if I'm anticipating that I'm not gonna enjoy this because it's the 3rd book in a series. You tell me what my first actual Stephen King horror should be in the comments. If you're a Stephen King fan, I would love that. Thank you, bye. I finished reading Holly and it went better than I thought it would. I think I'm probably gonna give it like a 3.5. I feel like it definitely does have old man trying to be woke syndrome. I was pleasantly surprised in how much I liked the actual story of it. I mean, old people killing and eating people will never not be a fun book to read. I had a good time. I was planning on updating you halfway through, but I have literally been listening to this non-stop so that I can finish this video in time. So let me tell you what my favorite things were. Let me tell you what the things that I didn't like were. Okay, so premise of the story, we have our main character, Holly. Holly's running this detective agency. Someone hires her to find her missing daughter, and then slowly Holly unveils the mystery and finds out what's going on. It felt exactly like watching an episode of Criminal Minds because we understood who the killers were like from the beginning. And I felt like, honestly, I kind of wished that we hadn't done that because it kind of felt like there were no stakes. I wasn't trying to figure out the mystery. I was just trying to see when Holly would figure out the mystery, and I would have preferred, I think, to not know who our killers were. But it was fun to kind of figure out their motivations, and that was a whole wild ride, and I did enjoy that aspect of it. But by far my favorite thing about this entire book was this lovely friendship that this old woman had with one of the characters that we're following. And it was just like this lovely poetry mentorship storyline that, if I'm being completely honest with you, didn't super feel like it needed to be in this book. But I, for one, greatly appreciated it being there. Yeah, this book was kind of all over the place. It was super long. I felt like it probably didn't need to be, but that's kind of what Stephen King does. You guys let me know what your favorite Stephen King is so that I can pick up Stephen King in the future. I found out that there are actually 5 books that I like should have read before reading this one in order to understand Holly's full storyline. It was fine to read as a standalone. I'm sure I missed a lot of things, but I wasn't overly confused, if that makes sense. There's also a lot of controversy around this book, but because it is quite political, it's set in like the thick of COVID. I didn't love being back in COVID times. I am not the type of person who likes to read COVID books. I know some people find that to be a really healing journey for them to go on to process those emotions, and that time was obviously awful for everyone. I, for one, don't love being back in that space this soon after we were in like the thick of the pandemic. I didn't love that aspect, but I will say the majority of the people who have an issue with this book have an issue because Stephen King is very all about taking COVID seriously and wearing masks, and our main character is quite concerned about COVID. Her mother has just died of COVID. I looked at some of the reviews on Goodreads and they are just people saying, hey, I've read every Stephen King, but this book is awful. I really wish he wouldn't have put his political views into a book, so on and so forth. So if you were wondering, if you've heard there's controversy, that's what it is. That's the controversy. That's what I'll say in the book. I thought it was a fun time. It read like a Criminal Minds episode. I don't understand why everyone was so freaked out about politics. Let's move on. Let's chat about what we have left to do here. This video is already over an hour long. We have one more book that we could read. So I know I told you guys I was reading Sisters of the Lost Nation. I'm just a couple chapters into it. Like I don't think I'm even a quarter of the way into it yet, but I brought it over to Dan's because I was reading it before where did we go? We went to his company Christmas party. Long story short, the book is still at his house. So I unfortunately will not be able to finish this because this video needs to go live tomorrow and I don't have the book. So I enjoyed what I read of this. Please let me know in the comments if you have read this, if you liked it, and then I will prioritize it in my TBR. But I think it's gonna have to go back on the TBR shelf because I gotta read the books for next week's video. So let me know if you liked this. Let me know if you liked Dead 11 or any of the other things on the top 20. I am going to attempt to get as far into My Darling Girl as I can because it's the last book that I haven't read in the top 10. It is a long book though, so I'm not making any promises because it is past 3 p.m. on Saturday and I still need to edit the majority of this video and sleep at least a little bit tonight before it goes live tomorrow morning. Okay, so I'm gonna go edit and stop talking to you so that this can go live. I will check in tonight with our final update. I'm editing this. It's not the final update. There are 3 books that I did not tell you about that I read prior to starting filming this video. We need to talk about How to Sell a Haunted House, Silver Nitrate, and Vampires of El Norte. So let's do that. We're gonna start with How to Sell a Haunted House because I have things to say that relate to Mr. Magic. So before you forget what I said about Mr. Magic, let's do that. Video. How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I picked this up the week that it was released, started reading it, found out that it was about a young woman who's in her 30s. She has a young child and she gets a phone call that both of her parents have died in a tragic accident. In this book, we go through the stages of grief. That's the parts of the book. Like this is bargaining. And that's horrifying. That's very scary. I do not want to find out what it is to live in a world without my parents. That is so deeply terrifying to me, so I had to put it down until I was in like a really comfy mental headspace, and I'm really glad that I waited to read this until I was super ready for it because I ate it up. This is one of my favorite things that I read prior to filming this video. So after our main character gets this phone call, she goes to clean out the house, do the funeral preparations. Are you sensing a theme with some of these books? Her brother also goes back to help clean up the house. They have this really fraught sibling relationship that I enjoyed following because I have an older brother and it caused me to think about how we would handle a similar situation. Hopefully a lot better than the people in this book did because they did not handle it well. There are puppets in here that come to life and they are deeply terrifying. This is also an incredibly funny book. It's campy, it's over the top. I ate up every single second of it. I have found this year that I really enjoy campy, over the top, absurd, funny horror. That is one of my favorite things to read. I know a lot of people greatly dislike that type of horror, but it is my kind of horror. I do like it a lot. I was also deeply terrified by this book because obviously the central premise of this this woman's parents have just died. That's deeply terrifying to me. And also something that comes up later with her own child is also one of the most horrifying things that I could even think about. And so when this did end in a comforting way, I did enjoy it because I needed that comfort because it was horror that I am scared of. I want it to end comforting. I need that little bit of hope at the end, and I think this book really walked that line quite well. Unlike in Mr. Magic, which you just heard me talk about, where I felt like it was a little bit too hitting you over the head with the comforting, which I totally get after hearing that afterward. That's what the author needed to write. But the way that it was done in here is my preference for comforting ending, if that makes sense. Okay, on to the next book. Next up, we need to talk about Silver Nitrate. This is another thing that I read before starting filming this video. I have barely anything to say to you because unfortunately this book was super forgettable. I just don't remember. I read it 4 months ago. I don't remember a lot of what happened. I've gone back and watched what I told you guys in my wrap up, and I didn't give you much, so I apologize for that. The premise of this book is that we were following a couple of people. We're in Mexico, and we are trying to basically finish this haunted film, occult film leaning thing. Like I mentioned with A House with Good Bones, I really enjoyed how our characters' professions were so prominent in this book because we have our one character who is an audio engineer, and that played a big role in how she kind of went about her life in this book, and her relationship to sound was really present in here, and I did really enjoy that. I thought it was scary. I liked the whole we're trying to finish a haunted film because of this occult thing. Like, that was cool. I liked that aspect of it. I thought it was dark. I thought it was scary. And ultimately, the rest of the book just, I don't remember any of it. I will say I think the best thing that I got out of this book was knowing that I can enjoy a Silvia Moreno Garcia. So I really want to pick up Mexican Gothic. I'm looking at it. It's staring at me from my TBR shelf right now. And I softy enough to that book because I didn't love the audiobook. I need to pick it up physically. So will you shout in the comments if you love Mexican Gothic to convince me that I need to read it. I'm curious. People who've read Silver Nitrate and Mexican Gothic, which one did you like better and why? I've been hearing not a lot of good things about Silver Nitrate, so I'm wondering if people think that Mexican Gothic is better. Because I did enjoy Silver Nitrate. I had a fine time with it. It just was a little bit forgettable. So I'm hoping Mexican Gothic is a bit different. Please let me know in the comments, please and thank you. Onwards and upwards, let's read more books. Hello, it's time to talk about the last book that I read before filming this video. I'm running out of places to film in front of my house, so Webster's here to make up for it. The last book we need to chat about is Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. I read The Hacienda last year, and it was one of my favorite things I read all year. I love Isabel Cañas writing horror. I would say that The Hacienda is a horror book with a romance subplot, and I think that Vampires of El Norte is more of a romance book with a horror subplot, if I'm being completely honest. We are following our two main characters, this relationship that we are uncovering, and one of them believes that the other one has died after something that happens really awful in their childhood, and he basically runs away because he's worried for his own safety because she's of like a higher class than him, and he's worried that if he's involved in her death, that will mean very bad things for him. So he sort of runs away. They find each other 9 years later, and it's this really beautiful story of their relationship. And we're in the middle of this war. We're talking about lots of class struggles. Obviously, this war is very present as well, and they both have roles to play in that war. And then we've also got this added horror element of these vampires. My biggest complaint is that I wanted more horror. I really did enjoy seeing this relationship unfold, but Isabel Cañas is so good at writing horror that I wanted more of the scary scenes. The scary scenes were my favorite parts of this entire book, and I wanted more of them. But I really appreciate, it feels fresh and new that Isabel Cañas is exploring this space at the intersection of horror and romance, and I'm really happy that she's writing in that space, and I'm gonna keep picking up everything that she reads. And that's what I have to say about Vampires of El Norte. I really enjoyed it. Not as much as The Hacienda, because I think I prefer Isabel Kindness's work when we've got more horror, less romance, but I still want both of those things in it. Highly recommend picking this one up, especially if you are a romance girly who's been wanting to get into horror. This might be a really good entry point for you, just like Our Share of Night was. Just like I think Our Share of Night would be a good entry point for people who are literary fiction girlies or historical fiction girlies trying to get into horror. Okay, that's it. Back to real-time reading. You made it to the final update. Thank you for watching what is an incredibly long video, if you're still here. I appreciate you so much. Okay, so I got barely any bit into My Darling Girl. I do think I'm gonna finish it though, because it is kind of like leading up to Christmas, and we have this woman's mother who was apparently pretty awful to her and her brother growing up, and there's like some stuff that went on in their past. She's asked to move in with her daughter because she has pancreatic cancer and she's dying. She wants to spend her last days with her daughter, and she's told her mother it's okay for her to come stay with her and she'll take care of her. It's a demonic possession story, and I think I am interested in reading it. So I am gonna read it. Let me know in the comments if you've read My Darling Girl, if it's worth it, because I think I might just keep on keeping on and read it. But this video needs to go up tomorrow morning and I need to sleep. So we have to end it here, unfortunately. Let's talk about everything I've read. Okay, I'm gonna put 2 lists up on the screen. Here is the full ranking of the top 20 from Goodreads. And then this is my ranking of everything that I completed. So I've left out My Darling Girl and Sisters of Lost Nation because I didn't complete those books. But here are my rankings and how they compare to the Goodreads Choice Awards rankings for everything. I'm so happy that I did this video. I read so many books. This is by far the most books I've ever read in a video that I've done ever. I had a fantastic time. I'm so sorry for taking 2 weeks off. It just had to happen. I will be back next week. I think we're gonna be reading some cozy fantasy. I'm so excited. Please let me know what your favorite horror of 2023 was, how you feel about the Goodreads Choice Awards. I personally don't even use Goodreads. I'm a Storygraph girly myself. And I think maybe this is the last year that I'll make Goodreads Choice Awards content because, oh boy, these videos are tough to make. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for being here. Like I said, this is the most ambitious video I think I've ever done. If you liked it, I would love for you to leave me a like. I would really appreciate that. Let me know in the comments if you like longer videos like this one, or if you prefer me to read 3 books in a video, if that's more digestible. Let me know. You made it to the end of this one, so let me know what you're interested in. Okay, I love you all. I'll see you next week. Bye.